They talk too much. Have you noticed? They never stop. Words, opinions, judgments, spitting them out like venom, hoping you'll drink it and collapse. People love the sound of their own voices, love to believe they know everything, love to think their words hold power. But words are weak. Power is silence. Power is the storm you don't see coming. Power is the fire that burns quietly, waiting until it swallows everything whole. You think you need to explain yourself? You think you owe them an answer? Oh, no, no, no. See, that's the trap. That's how they get you. They push, they prod, they poke until you speak, until you give them something to twist, to mock, to tear apart. They can't control what they don't understand, and silence is a language they don't speak. You ever watch a predator in the wild? A lion, a wolf, a snake? They don't waste time yapping. They don't explain why they're dangerous. They don't justify their strength. They move in silence, strike when it matters, and the world trembles beneath them. That's you, or at least that's what you should be. Because the moment you start explaining, the moment you start defending yourself, you hand them the weapon they'll use to cut you down. And you've given them too much already. Your trust, your time, your patience. And what did they do? They chewed it up and spit it back in your face. That's what people do. That's what they always do. They take and take and take. And when there's nothing left, they leave. And you're the fool left holding the pieces, wondering where it all went wrong. Let me tell you something. Something dark. Something real. They never cared. Not really. If they did, they wouldn't have doubted you, wouldn't have mocked you, wouldn't have turned their backs the second it was convenient. You think they're watching, waiting, hoping you'll rise? They're waiting for you to fall, waiting for a crack in the armor, waiting to see if you'll break. So don't. Be silent. Be still. Be unreadable. Be the thing that haunts them in their quietest moments. Because when you stop responding, when you stop giving them access to your mind, your emotions, your reactions, they panic. They realize they have no control. And that's when you win. Because words are for the weak, for the desperate, for the ones begging to be understood. But silence is for the ones who have nothing to prove. And you have nothing to prove. They'll never admit it. But silence scares them. It makes them nervous. It makes them uneasy. Because people like control. They like knowing they can pull your strings, make you react, make you flinch. But when you refuse to give them that satisfaction, when you just sit there, unmoved, unreadable, untouchable, they start to squirm. You see, silence forces them to face themselves, and that's the last thing they ever want to do. Most people walk around with a mask on their face, lying to themselves about who they really are. But when you don't play, along. When you stop feeding them your emotions, your thoughts, your explanations, you force them to deal with themselves. You become a mirror. And trust me, people hate mirrors because mirrors don't lie. That's why they try so hard to get a reaction out of you. That's why they poke, why they insult, why they whisper behind your back and laugh when they think you're not listening. It's not about you. It never was. It's about them, their insecurity, their weakness, their need to feel powerful. They talk because talking makes them feel important. But deep down, they know the truth. They know their words don't mean anything. But you're different. You don't need their validation. You don't need their approval. And that's power. That's why they hate you. That's why they'll keep trying to drag you into their little games. Why they'll push you, test you, do everything they can to break you. Let them try. You don't have to prove a damn thing to anyone. Not to them, not to the world, not to yourself. Because real power, real strength, it doesn't need to be explained. It doesn't need to be announced. You don't see a storm screaming about how dangerous it is. It just comes. It just destroys. And that's what you'll do. See? They expect you to crumble. They expect you to lash out, to get angry, to beg for their acceptance. They want to see you react, because a reaction means control. But when you refuse to react, when you sit there like a stone, when you let them waste their breath while you say nothing, oh, they hate that. They fear that. Because suddenly, they're not in charge anymore. Suddenly, they realize they don't matter. And that drives them insane. Because people like to believe they have an effect on you. They like to think their words can cut, that their opinions can shape you, that their presence means something. But when you stop responding, when you stop letting them in, when you stop giving them access to your mind, they become nothing. And nothing is the one thing they can't handle being. So be their nightmare. Be the silence that haunts them. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them lay awake at night, questioning if they ever mattered to you at all. Because the second they realize they never had power over you to begin with, that's when you've already won. And winning, it's quiet. It doesn't need to be announced. It doesn't need applause. Winning is walking away without a word while they're still standing there, shouting into the wind, desperate for a response that will never come. That's what true strength looks like. Not fists, not shouting, not threats, just silence. And silence? Silence is a language only the strong understand. They'll keep talking. That's all they know how to do. They'll try to fill the air with their voices, drowning in their own noise, desperately clawing for relevance. But you'll sit in silence, watching, listening, waiting. And that will destroy them, because they expect a reaction. They expect you to defend yourself. to explain yourself, to argue. They expect to be important enough to move you. But when you don't, when you just let them talk, let them scream, let them waste their breath, that's when they start to crack. You see, people fear silence more than they fear the truth. Because truth, they can argue with that. They can twist it, spin it, bury it under lies. But silence? Silence is untouchable. Silence is a wall they can't climb. And that makes them powerless. So let them talk. Let them spill their poison. Let them laugh. Let them judge. Let them tear you down with their words. Because in the end, that's all they have. Words. And words, they're empty. You ever watch a snake? A real one, I mean. A viper, coiled in the dirt, eyes locked, body still. It doesn't hiss. It doesn't thrash. It waits. Because it knows something they don't. Real power doesn't need to announce itself. A real predator doesn't need to prove it's dangerous. It just is. That's you. Or at least, that's who you need to become. Cold, calculated, silent. You don't argue with fools. You don't waste your breath on people who don't matter. You don't explain yourself to those who aren't worth the explanation. Because the second you do, the second you lower yourself to their level, you've already lost. And they want you to lose. They need you to lose. Because if you don't, if you stay silent, if you refuse to give them what they want, they're forced to sit with a truth they can't handle. They never mattered to you in the first place. And that burns. Because people are desperate to matter, to be significant, to leave a mark. And when you walk away without a word, when you make it clear they were nothing but noise, nothing but background static in your world, that's when they realize the truth. You were never playing their game. And that's when they start to panic, because they realize something terrifying. They talked, and you didn't listen. They judged, and you didn't care. They tried to break you, and you didn't even flinch. That's power. And they will hate you for it. They will despise you for it. They will say anything to pull you back, to make you doubt, to make you speak. Because silence makes them feel small, and they can't stand that. But let them drown in their own words. Let them burn in their own doubt. Let them rot in the grave they dug for you. Because you have no time for the weak, no time for the desperate, no time for the ones who tried to break you. They will beg for your words. They will desperately try to drag you into their chaos. They will scream for you to acknowledge them. You know why they can't stand silence? Because silence doesn't give them a script to follow. See, people thrive on reaction. They live for conflict, for drama, for the game. A game they've been playing their whole lives. One they expect you to participate in without question. They push, they prod, they spit their insults, they whisper their doubts, all to pull you in. Because the moment you respond, they win. The moment you justify yourself, explain yourself, defend yourself, you've handed them exactly what they wanted. Proof that they still have a hold on you, that their words matter. But what happens when you don't respond? When they throw everything at you? When they fire every bullet? When they try to cut deep and you don't even blink? Oh, that's when it gets interesting. That's when you see it. The shift, the hesitation, the creeping doubt behind their eyes, because suddenly they're not in control anymore. Suddenly their words, their mighty, all-powerful words, fall flat. And that terrifies them. Because people like to believe they're important, that their opinions hold weight, that their voices have the power to shake you, to shape you, to define you. But when you sit there, silent, when you don't flinch, when you don't even acknowledge their existence, that's when reality slaps them across the face like a cold, merciless hand. They mean nothing to you, and that breaks them more than any insult ever could. Because an insult, that's still attention. Anger, that's still engagement. But silence is erasure. Silence is non-existence. And to them, that's worse than any hell they could ever imagine. You see, people fear silence because silence forces them to confront the one thing they've been running from their entire lives: themselves, their own thoughts, their own weaknesses, their own irrelevance. And when you refuse to engage, when you refuse to feed them, when you cut them off and leave them to rot in their own noise, you force them to face the truth. They were never as powerful as they thought they were. And that's when the real panic sets in. Because suddenly, they're not in control. Suddenly, they don't know what to do. They scream louder, they push harder, they try every trick in the book to break your silence. And the more you refuse to react, the more desperate they become. It's almost pathetic, really, watching them scramble, watching them beg. Because that's what it is, isn't it? A plea. A desperate cry for significance. But you owe them nothing. Not a word, not a glance, not a single shred of acknowledgement. Because let me tell you something. The strongest people in this world, they don't waste their breath. They don't waste their time. They don't explain themselves to those who don't deserve an explanation. They know that true power isn't in what you say. It's in what you withhold. It's in what you refuse to give. And you're not here to entertain the weak. You're not here to dance for their amusement. You're not here to prove anything to anyone. You are here to walk away. Because when you walk away, when you leave them standing in the wreckage of their own useless words, that's when you win. That's when they realize they were never in the same league as you to begin with. And that will haunt them more than anything else ever could. Let them talk. Let them choke on their own words. Let them fill the air with their noise. Let them believe, foolishly, that their voices mean something to you. Because that's the funny thing about people, isn't it? They think volume equals value. They think if they speak loud enough, long enough, if they repeat themselves enough times, that somehow their words will carve into your skin like a blade. But that's their delusion. That's their weakness. Because words are powerless unless you let them have power. Words are just vibrations in the air, just desperate attempts to matter in a world that forgets people in an instant. But silence? Silence is permanent. Silence is unshakable. Silence is the graveyard where their words go to die. And that's why they can't stand it. That's why they fear it. Because silence leaves them with nothing. Nothing to twist, nothing to attack, nothing to fuel their pathetic little egos. When you don't respond, when you don't even acknowledge their existence, they're forced to confront the one thing they never wanted to face, the truth. And the truth is that they never had power over you. They only thought they did. They thought their opinions could shape you, thought their insults could define you, thought their presence in your life actually mattered. But when you cut them off, when you leave them shouting into the void, grasping at the air, clawing for a reaction that will never come, that's when reality destroys them. That's when they realize they were never important to you. And that will haunt them. Because people, they can handle hate, they can handle anger, they can even handle defeat. But irrelevance, that's a fate worse than death. When you give them nothing, when you erase them from your life as if they never existed, that's when they start to crumble. That's when they lose sleep at night, replaying every word they ever said to you, wondering desperately where they went wrong, wondering why you never fought back, why you never reacted, why you never cared. And that's what will drive them insane. Because their whole world, their entire existence, is built on attention, on validation, on knowing they can get under someone's skin. And when you don't let them, when you take that away, you don't just hurt them, you break them. You reduce them to nothing. And there is nothing more terrifying to a weak person than realizing they were never strong to begin with. So let them waste their breath. Let them scream. Let them shout. Let them hurl their little words into the air like pebbles against a mountain. And you will stand there, silent, unmoved, untouchable. Because that is power. That is strength. That is the difference between you and them. You don't need their words. You don't need their approval. And you sure as hell don't need to explain yourself to people who were never worth the explanation. Because explanations, they're for the ones who seek permission. And you don't ask for permission. You take what's yours. You build in silence. You rise in silence. You win in silence. And when the dust settles, when their voices fade, when they finally realize you were never listening in the first place, that's when they will understand. They lost before they even started. Let them talk. Let them run their mouths dry. Let them drown in the ocean of their own noise. Because in the end, that's all they have. Noise. Empty, desperate, meaningless noise. They speak because they need to believe they matter. Because if they stop, even for a second, they might hear the silence creeping in, whispering the truth they don't want to face. They are nothing. But you don't need to speak. You don't need to argue. You don't need to lower yourself to the level of the desperate and the weak, because silence is above them. Silence is beyond them. Silence is the language of the undefeated. And that's why they fear it. They fear it more than they fear being hated, more than they fear being beaten, because silence is not an attack. It is an absence of care, an absence of respect, an absence of them. And that is the worst fate imaginable to someone who believes the world should revolve around them. Because to be hated is still to be acknowledged. To be fought is still to be relevant. But to be ignored, to be nothing in someone else's eyes, that is death. So let them waste their breath. Let them spit their insults. Let them mock. Let them sneer. Let them convince themselves that they still have some kind of grip on you, because it's all they can do. It's all they know how to do. They think if they scream loud enough, if they press hard enough, if they push you into a corner, you will finally break. You will finally give them what they want. But you won't, because you are not like them. You do not beg for attention. You do not feed off of validation. You do not owe them a response. You owe them nothing, and nothing is exactly what you will give them. Because silence is not surrender. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not a lack of words. It is a weapon, a sharper, colder, deadlier weapon than anything they could ever comprehend. Silence is the void that swallows their voices whole, leaving them screaming into a black hole that does not answer, does not care, does not even recognize their existence. And that is what breaks them, because they want to matter. They need to matter. But when you don't react, when you don't respond, when you don't even look in their direction, you are showing them the truth they cannot accept. They never mattered at all, not to you, not to anyone, not even to themselves. And that is why they will keep coming. That is why they will keep trying. That is why they will burn themselves alive just to get a flicker of recognition from you. But you won't flinch. You won't turn. You won't speak. You will walk away. Because silence is the final act, the final judgment, the final nail in their coffin. And when the dust settles, when their voices fade into nothing, when they are left staring at the space where you once stood, realizing that you have already moved on, already left, already forgotten them, that is when they will know. They lost. They lost the second they thought their words could touch you. They lost the second they believed they had any power over you. They lost the second they underestimated the strength of someone who does not need to speak to win. Let them shout. Let them scream. Let them think in their tiny, fragile minds that their voices can reach you, that their insults can shake you, that their judgment matters. It is almost amusing, really, watching them grasp for control that was never theirs to begin with, because that's all it is, a desperate attempt to hold on to the illusion of power. They believe that if they talk long enough, if they scream loud enough, if they hurl enough words in your direction, they will force you to break your silence. But silence is where the real power lies, because silence forces them to sit with their own thoughts. It leaves them alone with the weight of their own existence. And that is what truly terrifies them. Because the people who run their mouths the most, the ones who can't stand silence, who fill every moment with noise, who drown in their own words, they do it because they fear what will happen if they ever stop talking. They fear what they might hear in the silence. They fear the truth creeping in, whispering in the quiet spaces between their words. And the truth is that their voices mean nothing. That is why they will never stop. That is why they will try again and again and again, circling you like vultures, desperate for a reaction. Because the moment you react, the moment you acknowledge them, even with anger, even with hatred, they have won. They have inserted themselves into your mind. They have proven, even for a second, that they matter. And that is all they have ever wanted. But when you refuse, when you stand there, cold, unreadable, untouchable, that is when the fear sets in. That is when they start to question everything. Because silence is not just the absence of words. Silence is the absence of them. And they cannot handle that. Because silence means they do not exist in your world. Silence means they have no power over you. Silence means that no matter how loud they scream, no matter how cruel they try to be, no matter what they do, they cannot reach you. And that is the greatest wound of all. You see, people are obsessed with control. They want to feel like they can bend the world to their will, like their opinions shape reality, like their presence holds weight. And when you deny them that, when you do not even give them the courtesy of a response, you do something far worse than defeating them. You make them irrelevant. And irrelevance, that is the death they fear most. Because when you erase someone with silence, when you show them without a single word that their existence does not touch you, that their voice is just noise carried away by the wind, you are delivering a punishment greater than any insult, greater than any revenge. You are showing them that they never mattered in the first place. And that is something they will never forgive, because they can recover from an insult. They can recover from an argument. They can twist your words, manipulate your anger, find a way to still feel important. But silence leaves them with nothing to hold on to. Silence strips them of everything. It robs them of the one thing they cannot live without, the illusion that they are significant. That is why you will never break your silence. That is why you will never explain yourself. That is why you will walk away without looking back, without hesitation, without regret. Because the moment you do, the moment you leave them screaming into the void, is the moment they realize they were never playing the same game as you. Because you do not play games. You end them. And silence is the final move. The moment they stop hearing your voice is the moment they lose. Not because you defeated them, but because they were never strong enough to stand in the silence with you. Let them shout into the void. Let them scream your name, curse your existence, hurl their words like weapons made of glass, because that's all they are: fragile, brittle, weak. Words cannot touch you unless you let them. Words only cut if you reach out and grab them. And you are beyond their reach, beyond their petty insults, their desperate opinions, their useless, pathetic attempts to control something they never had a grip on in the first place. They think you care. That's the greatest joke of all. They think you lie awake at night, replaying their words, questioning yourself, wondering if they were right. But the truth is that they are the ones lying awake. Because silence does not let them rest. Silence follows them. It lingers in the corners of their mind, in the spaces between their thoughts. It eats at them, wears them down, drives them insane. Because silence is not an absence. It is a presence. A heavy, suffocating, merciless presence that reminds them again and again that they do not matter, that they never mattered, and they cannot stand that. People like to believe they have control, that their words can shape the world, that their opinions hold weight. But when you do not respond, when you do not even blink in their direction, you are showing them that they were never as important as they believed themselves to be. And that breaks them more than anything else ever could. Because people fear the idea of being nothing. They fear irrelevance more than they fear death. They can justify losing. They can justify failure. They can twist their defeat into something noble, something grand. But being ignored, being forgotten, being erased, that is something they cannot recover from. And that is your victory. Not in arguments, not in fights, not in proving them wrong. Your victory is in the silence that follows them, the silence that chokes them, the silence that they cannot escape because they will try. Oh, they will try. They will throw everything they have at you. They will dig through the past. They will invent new lies. They will gather their little armies, their pathetic little crowds, all chanting the same worthless nonsense. And you will say nothing. You will stand there, untouched, unshaken, untouchable. Because true strength, true dominance, it is not found in words. It is found in the refusal to engage. It is found in the understanding that not everything demands a response, that not everyone deserves an answer, that silence is not just a choice, it is a judgment, a verdict, a sentence. And your silence is their execution. It is the weight they cannot lift, the truth they cannot deny, the nightmare they cannot wake up from. Because when the shouting is over, when their voices are hoarse, when they are left gasping for breath, hoping, begging for just one word from you, just one sign that they still matter, they will be met with nothing. And nothing is what will destroy them. Not fire, not rage, not revenge, just silence. Because silence is the most powerful answer of all. And when you finally walk away, when you leave them drowning in the words they once thought had power, they will realize the truth too late. They were never strong enough to exist in your world to begin with.